Chris Rock recently said that Barack Obama as president was an aberration. Donald Trump in America as president is the true condition. Is that true?
It's interesting that today is called Truth to Power. We often in the protest community talk about the act of protest being the act of telling the truth out loud and in public. And then that's all it is, right? You can take that spirit of protest anywhere, and that's exactly what Chris Rock does when he reminds us that this is our true condition. We, especially as black activists, often discuss the fact that we are, as we say, not new to this, but true to this, that our ancestors have been fighting for issues of freedom and liberation, access and equity since we were brought to these shores. And so we have been in this fight for a long time. We're going to be in this fight even after, I won't even give it the next 4 years because I remain hopeful that we'll be done with this sooner. And I think y'all's attorney general, because he's not mine, is a reminder of this, right? That the most salient words that we could find, that Elizabeth Warren could find, that so many of us on Twitter and on social media could find to talk about this person were not from anyone who's currently alive or a force in any current movement, right? It was from Coretta Scott King. So this is not new. We have been in this condition for a long time. The question is, will history continue to repeat itself or not?
It's an interesting comment that Chris Rock makes because, there is that feeling of like we had a black president for 8 years and white people just went crazy. Like something happened. There was a kind of reaction to that 8 years of people having to be polite about their racism and their bigotry and their anger in terms of that, and suddenly it just erupted. So I don't know if it was a natural state that this has always been there, or there was an actual cyst that got popped because as a reaction to Barack Obama's presidency in the last 8 years, that we had been sort of had sort of been medicated or something for a long time and sort of was under the surface, and that suddenly it was allowed to emerge.
I'm just going to go ahead and get myself in trouble right away, right? I think that that's actually what Donald Trump would like us to think. He would like us to think that this is the natural condition, that our worst selves are the natural, state of politics. And I mean, that's sort of the basic fascist worldview, that the world is rotten, that the mask of hypocrisy gets ripped off, and we act as our basest selves. That's what he's appealing to, and I absolutely refuse to think that that is the natural state of things.
Well, this goes to, Jelani, you made a point in a piece not long ago about the optimism, the kind of religion of optimism as a condition of being an American, and that Trump plays against this. That Trump is anything but the happy warrior, whether it's on the left or the right.
What Chris Rock said is more true than not. And in the sense that there is a lineage and there's a tradition. And so when we were hearing people say, we're in uncharted waters, that was not true. And we've been talking about this all through, the lead up to November 8th, that we saw that connection, with Roy Cohn to McCarthy and McCarthyism and his relationship to the media looking strikingly similar to what Joe McCarthy's relationship to the media looked like. Or if we were talking about the racial politics of George Wallace, or to a lesser degree, Barry Goldwater, or the populism of Tom Watson, at the beginning of the 20th century, there are enough analogies to say that Trump did not spring from nowhere, kind of whole cloth. And the idea of American optimism is that in order to be as optimistic as we've been, we have to consistently erase history. Because we have this idea that nothing bad can actually happen here, or worst case scenarios don't play out here. And the only way you can actually think that is if you're not paying attention to the worst case scenarios that actually did take place. And in that piece I was saying, when Sinclair Lewis wrote, "It can't happen here," it already was happening here and had been happening since the end of Reconstruction. But it's a particular kind of selective reckoning with history that allowed us to have this optimistic outlook. That said, I think more often than not...
Meaning a race-free
right.
analysis.
Right. But more often than not, we have been confident in the basic sanity of the presidency, even when people disagreed. I think the level of demagogic content that we've seen from him is actually something different. And it is kind of novel that the political immune system never walled it off.